Hi, my name is Belinda Agnew. I am the founder of Foccus Group, which is digital tech, scaling tech talent, obsessed with startup tech, huge fanatic in the tech space. Welcome to the Inspiring Leadership Series. I will now hand you over to the host, Jonathan Bowman-Perks.
Belinda, thank you. It's so lovely to have you. And I also appreciate the fact that in Melbourne, Australia, where you're at the moment, it's 8 o'clock at night. So you definitely need a glass of wine. Show us the glass of wine. Show us the glass of wine.
I actually do have a glass of wine.
Yeah, that's not a glass. That's a bucket.
It's
like half
Is
a
it
glass.
a bucket? It's probably two glasses. It's like one glass.
That's very good. Well, look, it's lovely having you on the show because you also are a podcast host yourself of startups and unicorns. And you interview lots of entrepreneurs around the world. So it's lovely to meet a fellow podcaster. Tell us a bit about the other things that you're doing right now, and then we'll go back to childhood and the things that influence you. So what's all the different things you're doing right now?
Oh my gosh. So I am doing so many cool things right now. I'm actually really excited about, I guess, the work life I have now. I feel like when you work so hard, everything starts to fall into place, 5, 6 to 10 years down the track, which is exciting. So I'm involved in a couple of cool startups. One of them is Floofers, which is a SaaS product for pets. So it's essentially like an Airtasker where pet sitters meet pet owners. And then I'm also involved in another startup called Anywhere Auctions, which is a prop tech company where you literally can bid from your mobile phone. You can purchase a property from your mobile phone anywhere in the world. It's really cool. And they're about to launch in USA. I'm also involved in another tech startup called BizPay, which we're actually going to go in IPO sometime next year. So they're like a fintech company where they afterpay for businesses. So you can pay your services in 4 installments, but you as a provider, as a company, can get paid within 24 hours, but it allows your client to pay in 4 installments, which is really cool. Other than that, I'm cooking up a Netflix for recruitment myself. So I'm currently working on an MVP. We actually just about to close a pre-seed for that, to be honest. Just so close to it, but it's been a roller coaster in itself because it's my first raise. So learning a ton, but really excited.
Wow. Well, Belinda, that's going to keep anybody busy. And
yeah.
to take us from the leader you are today, working in this entrepreneurial way back to when you were born, what are the people and the kind of events that have shaped you as the leader you are today? Tell us a bit about that.
I thought about this so many times, and I feel like I constantly keep changing the way that I think. I mean, like 5 years ago versus my answer now. I think what shaped me is definitely my upbringing. Like as Jonathan, and many entrepreneurs and many leaders, it's literally your childhood and how you were brought up, in my opinion. And I actually just recently seen my family last week, actually. I haven't seen them in like a year and a half, I think. It's been a really long time. So I am close to my family, but I'm not extremely close. So I would call myself like the black sheep, the outsider in a sense. So a lot of my family is completely polar opposite to me in so many ways. So my family, most of my family actually don't work. So a lot of them rely on government benefits and things like that. God bless them and with whatever they do, but we're completely different. So I think my upbringing was, I guess, I wouldn't say poor, but it was almost on the edge of poor. So I came up, my mom brought me up as a single mom. So she was a single mom. She was homeless when I was, a really young baby. I think I was about, like 5 months old. She was homeless for about a couple of years. And then she ended up moving around in random people's homes because she couldn't afford her own home. And then my mom kind of just became a cafe worker, labor worker for many years, still is. Now she's working in aged care. But for many years she was doing that. So I think growing up, I didn't really have a role model to look up to in any way. I think when I was growing up, I was told numerous times by my family members that I was never going to do anything. I was never going to achieve anything. I, looked different because I'm a European and my mum's side of the family's all white and Australian, blonde hair, blue eyes. So I was really the outsider in so many ways. So yeah, I was constantly put down. I was called dumb, even by my teachers. It was a constant thing from everybody, actually. And then I think when I hit high school, my life just changed around. So I moved from country to city, and then the city, obviously, bigger population. So I kind of found myself in a popularity group. And I think I learnt a ton from them, and my confidence just grew enormously. And I think from my job and so forth after that. But from my upbringing, yeah, single mom, don't know my dad, still don't know my dad, don't have a relationship with him, was an outsider, very shy, not confident at all, didn't even speak to anybody. I was really pushed to the side, pushed to the corner. So I think that kind of made me the woman that I am today. It was just fighting to do something with my life. It was like the grit. I just couldn't stop until I did something. And then when I keep doing more, I just want to keep doing more. It's like, it's not enough. When is it enough? And it's never enough. So I think it was, definitely coming from that for sure.
Wow. And that's quite some story. Like you, I didn't know my father. I mean, he was killed when I was 3. I mean, I know
wow.
history of him, but I do find that a number of the people who've pushed themselves and been successful in different fields often have lost a parent or not known one of their parents, and there's this badge collecting that I think you have done and I've done of trying to prove things. I mean, look at the different entrepreneurial businesses that you're involved in, and all the things that I'm trying to do. It pushes us. We almost become dysfunctional because we're trying to prove to someone who's long dead. I mean, psychologists have a field day with us because we're trying to prove to people that we're good enough. And every time we achieve something, it's the next thing. Like, I sort of said to someone, so now you've climbed Everest, what next? Goes, well, I'm looking for the next thing. And, been into outer space. So I think it is interesting, the hardship that you've been through and the fact that you haven't got the role models and people did run you down. I was told I was thick and I was going to be a dustman. I don't know whether you call them dustmen in Australia, but the garbage guys, because I couldn't spell, I couldn't do maths. I turned out to be dyslexic.
Yeah, me too. I was terrible.
Yeah, I turned out to be dyslexic, and so a bit like Richard Branson, who's dyslexic too. He finds his way. That is really interesting. So from your experiences, tell us about, in your life so far, one of your proudest moments and what you learned from that, and also one of the toughest, darkest personal moments for you.
Yeah, I don't want to keep repeating myself on podcasts. I think I want to think of something a little bit different. I think the proudest moment to date recently, to be honest, has been my pre-seed. I never really thought, like, I don't want to be a feminist, but I never really thought as a woman, and a non-technical founder, like no technical background, B, could raise such a large amount pre-seed just on an ideation. And an ideation is essentially an idea. This is my idea on paper. I don't have anything else bar the idea. Do you want to back me? And I think that's probably one of my proudest moments to date. I think that was really exciting. And to speak to companies, $100 million companies about this, they were also like, holy crap, like this is a big deal, B. Like this is kind of unheard of. The fact that you have no revenue, you have no like real, I guess, track record in technical space, you haven't really exited a company, the fact that these people are willing to back you with such, millions of dollars pre-seed, like with an idea, is kind of unheard of. So
congratulations, that's amazing.
yeah, contracts are not signed yet, but there is commitment there, yeah, for sure. So I think that was just kind of one of like, oh my god, this is really happening. So yeah, that's really exciting. And then I think the darkest moment for me would probably be this is tough. There's a couple dark moments. I think the darkest one would be, I think something that I'm still struggling with now, to be vulnerable, is, I guess the personal side for me. So I think, you were saying not having a parent and things like that. So we kind of thrive in business. We do really well in business. We do really well professionally because of, our upbringing and our past and things like that. We're trying to prove to ourselves and we have high expectations. But in my personal life, I'm not really good at it. I'm still trying to figure it out, like my relationships and I'm not married and, I don't have kids and things like that. So I think as a woman at 30, almost 31 in November, it's kind of like, this is the time where we have children. This is the time when we are married, we get married, or something's happening in our lives personally. And I don't have that yet. And I haven't really figured it out yet. I think that's still something recently that I'm still trying to figure out, to be honest.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I think with all the entrepreneurs and successful business leaders, they get very focused in some areas and they forget others, or they're successful in one but not another. So I wish you every success with that. And
I hope so.
And thank you for being open about that. And with all the experience that you've got by the age of 31, and I quickly add that my children are aged sort of 26 to 29, so they're similar age, being an old guy. To you, their boyfriends are a similar age to you. What advice would you give to the 16-year-old version of you, your younger self, having learned in the intervening years what you've learned? What advice would you give to the young 16-year-old Belinda Agnew?
There's so many things that I would say, but I always go back to, I wouldn't do it differently, because if I had, I wouldn't be in the situation that I'm in. And at 16 years old, we all know what we're like, or we all knew what we were like at 16. If I had said 10 things that were going to be important in my life, I wouldn't have listened anyway.
That's a very good point.
No, it's true. I wouldn't have listened. So whatever I would have said, I wouldn't have listened. And I think a lot of people need to go through it to be able to experience it and come out in the end. So I think on that, there's one thing that I would say to myself, if I was to listen to it, I would definitely say that you need to take a chill pill and believe in the universe. And everything will eventually fall into place. So I'm a bit of a control freak. I like to control things in the future. So I think the advice that I would have is just enjoy the journey as much as you can, because life keeps moving regardless of whatever you do.
This is really interesting. And I'm almost 60 now. And when I look back, I was just way too intense when I was younger. And I should have taken it. I should have taken a chill pill, because not everything is a disaster. No one's died. I'm now at the age where sadly people I know and care about are dying, and so this does matter. But I think when we're younger, we take ourselves way too seriously.
We do,
and far too intense, and actually we miss out on a lot of fun. But yeah, thank you for that. So let's go around the Inspiring Leadership Compass with some experiences and tips. MQ is the first one, the sort of moral compass, the principles, the values, your integrity, what you will do and what you won't do. What are the sort of top 3 foundational values that you tend to live by that serve you well? What are they?
Number one, definitely freedom.
Yeah.
Freedom's big, big, big for me. Hence why I am in the space that I'm in, because it gives me the freedom to do what I want, with whom I want, when I want. So I think freedom for me is definitely big. Number one, for sure. Number two would definitely be, I think family would be number two for me now that I'm a little bit older. I used to say independence, but I think independence comes with freedom a little bit. And then I think three would definitely be a mixture of independence and love, for sure.
Yeah. Great.
But again, love is almost combined with family.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. And from your moral values and your integrity, the next one around is PQ, what gives your life meaning and purpose? Why you do the tech start fanatic work you do? You know, what gives your life meaning and purpose, Belinda?
So this is interesting because I never thought, if you had told me like 5 years ago that I was going to be in tech, I wouldn't have believed you. I would have been like, tech, what? Like, no, that is not the space I want to be in. Technology is not for me. The reason why I got into tech is because I guess I was reading up a lot about, when I started the recruitment agency, I was in, I guess, the tech space recruiting for tech companies, and I was very much involved with tech founders. And alongside that, I seen, solving a small problem and scaling that up, quite massively, but obviously reaching the masses with technology was far more larger than doing it manually or through a service business. So I think technology for me isn't something that I would say I'm obsessed with at the core. I think for me, what I'm obsessed with is solving an issue and making my life easier with it. Hence why I love it, because I know how powerful it can be with solving just a simple solution, really. Or problem, sorry. So I think technology kind of found me. I didn't find, I think it came to me, and I ended up, loving it. It's like, it was funny when I was interviewing Elena Cardone. I don't know if you know her, the Cardones, but they're like $1 billion family. And it was funny, she was saying, when I met my husband, he was this like short little stumpy guy, and I just didn't have love for him at all, and I didn't know who he was, and I just wasn't attracted to him. I didn't like him at all. He just wasn't for me. And then later down the track, I just found this love for him, and he just made me the woman that I am today, and I found myself through him. And wow. I feel like that's kind of like the journey that I went on, but with technology. So that's kind of the love that I have for it. It's like, I never really loved it at the start, but I ended up loving it.
It's a very good way of putting it together. And I think it was the late Steve Jobs. And Steve Jobs said, you join the dots looking backwards, and you make sense of things that came to you. And here I am coaching CEOs, boards, top teams. I never saw that years ago. That's what I was going to do. But a number of things happened to me, my time in the army and things like that, and working in IBM and PricewaterhouseCoopers, that brought me to this. And you can make sense of it looking back. And here you are now. Who's to know what you'll be doing at 41, at 51, at 61? So might be some very different things. That's really helpful. Next one is health quotient, health and well-being, mental and physical health and well-being, which is so important to so many people who are listening around the world today. What would be your top tips how you keep yourself physically and mentally fit and healthy?
I think for me, look, I think this is something that I'm still also trying to figure out. So I am not the type of person where I would wake up in the morning and do what most entrepreneurs do, and how they thrive is, usually they meditate, they write down what they're grateful for, they journal, they do lots of these things. They wake up at 4 a.m., they go to the gym. But it's like, none of that I don't do. I don't do any of that, actually. I don't meditate, hardly. I think my meditation is when I'm walking. I don't really read books. I listen to audio podcasts or audio books more so, or I have conversations with people that interest me. That's kind of how I learn and get my information. I think health, it's such a term that almost directs to everything that entrepreneurs do, but I feel like I don't do any of that. I do the opposite. So I'm vegan. I've been vegan for 8 years now. So I don't eat any animal products. I don't consume meat, don't consume dairy, don't consume egg or anything that comes from an animal. It's something that I chose 8 years ago. So I was actually quite overweight 8 years ago. Not overweight, but I was probably, I don't know, 15 kilos heavier, which is quite large for me. I'm quite small. And I had cystic acne all over my skin. I don't know if you know what cystic acne is, but it's like a terrible, like for a woman, it's terrible. So I was really self-conscious for almost 12 months. Long story short, I ended up going vegan for animal reasons. Secondly, was for health. But since being vegan, it has completely changed like the way that I look at life and the way that I feel. It's not for everybody, but I believe when you consume animal products, it's almost like you're consuming the energy from that animal, or the energy that the animal has lived. So health is important to me in that sense. I believe in energy. Energy is obviously made up of everything in life itself. So that's one of the things that I truly believe in is, consuming the right things and making sure you're consuming, the best for your body. But everything else around that it's not really something that I do.
Yeah.
Meditation, you should be doing meditation. I feel like I'm the worst person to talk about this, by the way.
No, it's very interesting. And
that's probably the only healthy thing that I do is vegan. But I'm not a hardcore health freak.
No,
I'll be honest, like I'm drinking red wine. So.
Well, I'm assuming it's vegan red wine, where they don't use. I think they can use fish gut, can't they, to filter.
Even
Very
like
strange.
pig fat.
Yeah,
liquidated pig fat.
No, it is interesting, Belinda. You had the vegan decision. I did vegan for a year, and the reason I did vegan for a year was I got late onset asthma, and so I went vegan. My asthma went within a month, and I've just kept dairy off. I don't have dairy now, but I have introduced fish and egg and occasionally some red meat, but not that often. But I just generally eat a very healthy diet, and I do. This morning I did my mindfulness. I did the walk with the dog. And
that's your meditation.
Exactly. I did my meditation. I do 20 minutes of headspace.
Oh, you do?
I've done it for 335 days. A program.
Wow.
Just continual. There's a 365-day program which I'm doing. So and then if I hadn't just had an operation, I'd be training in the gym as well. So I am like your other entrepreneurs. I like doing that, but it's interesting. Everybody's different. And I think
this is the thing.
Everybody's different.
This is the thing. Everybody's different. And like, I feel like, when I talk to people, they're like, oh my gosh, you don't wake up at 5 a.m. They're like, what? They're like, what do you mean? You go to bed at like 3 a.m.? Like, what is wrong with you? And I think you shouldn't, if everything is different for everybody, I think do what works for you. Don't follow what other people are doing, because that may not work for you.
Did I hear you say you go to bed at 3 a.m.?
Sometimes, yes.
Right. And you get up at what time?
8.
Okay. All right. That is
sometimes.
That's quite rare to have so little sleep. And
I know.
There's a very good book I recommend you read by Matthew Walker called Why We Sleep, and it's really good audiobook called Why We Sleep.
No, I do sleep. Like if I'm tired, I'll go back to sleep.
Right.
And I'll move stuff around. Like sleep is super important to me. Super important. If I don't sleep, my day is just ruined.
Yeah.
I definitely try and get 8 hours sleep for sure.
It does make a huge difference. I think something like the difference between getting 6 hours sleep and getting 7.5 hours sleep is an extra 30% performance. I think that's that's a huge amount. Moving on from health to emotional intelligence, EQ. What would be a tip that you've learned about building rapport and influencing people through getting to know them. Would you share any tips you've learned about people?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, when they meet people, especially in business, they come across as an opportunist.
Mm-hmm.
And I think once the other person sees that or feels that, they put a guard up straight away. So I think whether you want to do business with that person, or whether you want them as a client, or whatever, I think you just need to go in and actually get to know the person first on a personal level prior to shoving your services down their throat. I just think it's, we're all human and we all feel things. We're all emotional. I think based on my career, that's one thing that I could say that's my best asset, is I'm very good at connecting and networking with people. So I think it's definitely, based on actually wanting to get to know that person on a genuine level, rather than just coming in as an opportunist. Yeah. So yeah, one of the things is, going in, getting to know the person on a personal level, rather than, from a business perspective.
I would definitely support that, and I'm a great believer in people's stories. I'm absolutely fascinated by, just as I am about yours, about stories.
It's interesting, right?
Yeah, and you cannot hope to get to build a relationship with someone unless you really understand where they've come from and their experiences and what shaped them,
absolutely.
the values they have. No, that's
because you find relevance through it, right? You're like, oh yeah, that's me too, and then you start communicating that way, and then you start to have similarities, and then rapport builds from that. So I think you just need to talk to them on a personal level. Don't be an opportunist.
Yeah, exactly. No, people smell it a mile off. They can just sense that you're trying to take something from them, and there's nothing in it in return, and then and that you're not really interested in them. You just kind of do the quick deal and just get out of there. Okay, really support that one. The other one linked to that is what we call CQ, cultural or collective intelligence. Getting on with people of a whole range of different backgrounds. It's about diversity, equality, inclusion. How have you developed your cultural intelligence, your ability to get on with people from lots of different backgrounds, different countries, different...
I thank my family for that a lot. Like, that's actually one thing that my family has given me, is obviously life itself, but secondly is being able to adapt in different rooms quickly. So I'm very good at adapting quickly, and I know kind of what personality is in front of me by tone, by feel, by physical appearance. Like, not that I'm making assumptions, but I'm very good at adapting with all types of people. That's actually one of the things that I'm also good at. But yeah, definitely. I think one of the tips that I could give you is just don't overthink or make assumptions about people. Again, going back to getting to know them on a personal level prior to having an opportunity, being an opportunist.
It's so true, time and again. I think two of the things that have always been something I constantly work on, and I think people always have to. One is being non-judgmental about other people, their difference, and looking at them and making a judgment on how they even appear. And the second one is non-attachment to things, stuff, that you get upset if you've lost something or you don't get that material good. And it is quite Zen-like. You have to work on that non-attachment, non-judgment. And I think you sound like you're adapting quickly and not making assumptions are two of the things that you have too.
You just don't make assumptions. Yeah, it's so simple. Like, most of the stuff is, you would know better than me. It's very simple.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And then on to resilience, whether it be your upbringing with your mum and your family, or different experiences you had moving from the country into the city. What would be your tip about resilience and coping with adversity and setbacks?
My tip, you mean?
Yeah, your favorite tip. Yeah, a bit of advice you'd give.
Yeah, I think for resilience, it's something that, I mean, you could learn it, but you can't stick to it if it's not something that you want to do. So I think before you go and try and be resilient, I think you need to figure out, or taste a ton of stuff, like Gary Vee says, and figure out what keeps you wanting to keep trying or keep moving forward on that particular thing. I think that's kind of like the first thing, because there's so many things that I've tried to do and I didn't want to go back and do that. It just didn't mean that I wasn't resilient. It just meant that it wasn't for me. So I think people get mixed up between those two as well. But yeah, being resilient is definitely something that I believe you can't learn. I just think, I mean, I keep changing as well with this, but I think right now at this particular moment, I don't think that you cannot learn grit and you cannot learn resilience. I think it's something that you're born with, for many reasons. And most people may disagree, some people may agree, but I think it's all based on, experiences and upbringing and relationships that you have, but it's definitely something that you're born with, or you have like a fire within it. It's a different type of breed, I think, anyway.
Yeah, and it is an interesting point you say. I think back to doing my airborne training when they had you sort of
airborne,
running miles and jumping off bridges into canals and things like this. And
I would never think that you would do airborne.
No, well, it just scared the living daylights out of me because I didn't like heights. But I think the training that you get can build on the attitude that you have of, I'm not going to give up. I am going to see this through. But it was interesting, the people who chickened out and jacked it in, as they said. They had a wagon, a vehicle behind. It was called the jack wagon. And if you couldn't do it, get on the jack wagon and you leave now. We'll never see you again. You're gone. Your kit's packed. You've left.
Wow.
And that was quite brutal. That from 250 of us, we got down to 36 of us who passed. And those 250, they're all serious about coming. They're trained and prepared for it. But various things were put in their way to see if they'd give up. And I think life's a bit like that. It throws things at you to see whether you've got the grit to keep going, or are you going to give up?
Yeah.
And they would deliberately do things. I remember one where we came running in after a 10-mile march and I was just dead in my bootstraps. And we could see the barrier of the gate of the barracks, and we were coming in, and the sergeant went, I think we'll go and do it again. Turn round, off we go. And soon enough, for a mile we did it again. And we lost 20 people at that stage because they went, I can't do this again. And of course, he wasn't ever going to do the whole 10 miles, but he did do another mile. And of course, in war, the enemy don't go, oh, Belinda, you're tired. We won't come and attack you till tomorrow. Have a sleep. Don't worry about it. Get your 8 hours in. We'll come back later. They don't do that. Anyway, now on to your favorite topic.
Funny.
Favorite topic, brand, BQ, brand, reputation, image, and impact. What it would be your tip that you've learned about developing a personal brand, and getting feedback from other people on how they experience your brand. What's your tip on this one?
I think everybody has a personal brand. They just don't advertise it. So I think, do what you do, just make sure you're showing up online as well, because I truly believe if you didn't take a video, if you didn't post about it, if you don't have a photo, it never happened in your mind, but it never happened to the world. So I think you can only provide value based on showing up online. Brand is really important. I think a lot of people, again, overthink this one. It's not as complicated as you think. You don't need to have, a marketing degree or anything like that. It's pretty basic stuff. So I believe, actually, one of my girlfriends, she runs a personal branding agency called Clout. And she's like a pro at personal branding. And there was one thing that she said, it was like a mixture of what I said also, but she, reclaimed this. She said, people remember people based on how you make them feel. So, you as an individual, you need to show up online and tell your story and make people feel something for them to remember you as a person and as a brand, right? So whether it's business or personal, you just need to make people feel things, because you can say a ton of stuff that could be super valuable, but if they didn't feel anything from that piece of content, they won't remember you. So I think just showing up in that way. But I think you also need to, go back to like the basic stuff as well, as like, why do you want to create a brand? And a brand could be different types of content. You could do written content, you could do audio content, you could do video content. I think pick the one that you're good at, because I'm probably not as good at video, but I'm awesome at writing copy. So I think stick to what you're good at. Don't just create content, like create videos. If you're not really good at videos and you're not getting traction, then maybe don't do that. Do copy or do audio or do a podcast or something like that. So I think that's another thing, is sticking to what you do best as well.
Yeah, very, very wise. Yeah, and as a dyslexic myself, I love video.
I feel like I'm
I love audio.
Dyslexic.
Well, have you had a test? Have you had a test?
No, I feel like I should do a ton of tests. I think I'd come up with like all these like crazy things. I think I'm like ADHD. I feel like I've got bipolar. I think I've got like, all these crazy,
Well, do you know what? They're not crazy things. A lot of people.
We all say that. Yeah, they do. They do.
A lot of people have different challenges. And I think it is worthwhile you going through and doing a batch of tests and seeing what they come up with, just so you know.
I should do that. Yeah.
It took me until I was about 50, even later than 50, to find out, do a test and find out I was dyslexic and had dyscalculia. But I just found a way around it. But it's nice to know earlier on, so I wouldn't have struggled so hard on the written word, because when I did my book, I dictated it. And that was my way of recording my book, and that's the way I'll do the next book, which is going to be
amazing.
CEOs and teams inspiring leadership, in which leaders like you will be in it. So, talk about that legacy. What would you like your legacy to be when you pass away in years to come? What would you like people to say about you? What do you think is important about legacy?
Gosh. I would love, I guess the future goal for me is to become a sole investor. I'd love to invest into women tech startups for one, but also invest into the people that I truly believe in. And I guess I want to be involved in cool startups. So I think I want to leave that behind, number one. And number two is I'd love to open up an animal sanctuary at one point, because I'm obsessed with animals. And that's definitely something that I would love to do on this planet at some point, hopefully before I die.
Yeah, sounds like a good plan. You should meet Archie, our Cocker Spaniel. He's been out with me this morning. Do you have cats or dogs? Or I suppose you're too busy.
Yeah, I have a dog. Her dog bed's literally, can you see that black thing right behind me? That's her dog bed. Yeah. She's got like 3 beds in the house. She's just like fully, she's the queen of the house.
What breed?
She runs the household.
What breed?
She's Maltese Pomeranian.
Oh, right. Yeah, she definitely will run the household, I'm sure, as a Maltese Pomeranian.
Yeah, she does.
Okay, well, talking about strong characters, let's talk about teams and strong characters in teams.
Yeah.
When you've come across different teams, I mean, you can even think back to at school, and I'm sure girls at school could be pretty toxic. They certainly sounded like they were when you were in the country before you got to the city. What have you done when you've been in a team where it's toxic and tried to make it a high-performing team, or sort it out? What's been the advice you'd give to people when they find a toxic situation, trying to get it better?
Yeah. I've been in many situations like this, like on a personal level and also business. I think I like to rip the Band-Aid. I'm a very, like, I go in and take the problem out ASAP. Whatever the issue is, I like to like resolve things and talk about it and be the person, be the leader, and what's going on, what's the real issue. Because I think a lot of the times there's a core issue that we don't know about. But I think if it comes to the point where it's toxic, not only to the team, but to the culture, you just need to rip the Band-Aid. And unfortunately, in my opinion, I think it's worked over and over again. As much as you talk about it, people won't change. I think it's really hard for people to change who they truly are. So I think you need to rip the Band-Aid and start a new slate in that particular team or culture. But I think, in my opinion, rip the Band-Aid has worked for me. In the past, I've always
on that question of ripping the Band-Aid, I do relate to that. And are you saying that, for example, if you got someone who people find difficult to work with, you just get rid of them? Is that your approach? That's what you mean?
No, I don't do that. What I mean by that is, so in personal scenarios, I've done that over and over again. In business, obviously, protocol, you need to have the conversation, have a team conversation, make sure that they're okay, because there could be things that are not okay at home, or, mental health issues or whatnot. So obviously protocols is we need to have the conversation first. But if it's a thing of where it gets to a point where it's called toxic, and toxic is quite broad, but when I think toxic, I think bad. And I think that's a bad egg that needs to be removed. Because if the egg starts to, rub off on other eggs, good eggs, it starts to become a bad culture over time, and I think sometimes it's good to go in and be the bad cop and just remove the bad egg.
Yeah,
is what I'm saying. But protocols, obviously, I'm not giving people advice to go and, fire the bad eggs. Obviously have the conversation first, but, don't leave the bad egg in the room too long, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Some good mixed metaphors there, but I certainly get it. And what about, from that, thank you for that. What about your favorite book on leadership? Or neuroscience, or anything you particularly read recently? What would you have as a favorite?
I don't think I'm a real book reader. I'm a more of an article podcaster / audio. I think recently, I actually listened to this podcast recently. I don't know if you know Anne Summers. Have you heard of her?
Yeah. She's famous for her underwear.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So I recently discovered her. You should definitely interview her, by the way. She's amazing. So her upbringing and her whole story is almost like mine. It's crazy. So I recently found this Anne Summers. I listened to a podcast that was called CEO Diaries, or Diaries of the CEO, by Stephen something. I can't remember his name. But anyway, she mentioned in her podcast that, because she's in retail, when COVID happened and she got the call and the email saying you have to shut down 150 stores, as a leader, as a CEO at that point, 150 stores, that's like thousands of staff members she needs to call and say, hey, you don't have a job tomorrow or next week or next month. So what I learned from her is, she said she had the conversation where she was in a position to pay her staff ongoing throughout the whole pandemic, and she was to be able to support them in other ways rather than them actually working. So I think what I'm trying to say is, a good leader is not thinking that you're just a leader. You need to be a supporter. You need to be their support system, like a counselor or their mum or their dad or their best friend. You need to be somebody that they trust to be able to have a conversation with you, because if they cannot have a conversation with you, in my opinion, that's not really a good leader, because I think good leaders are the people that you feel safe. It's like your safe place.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is, I learned that from that conversation she had with her staff, is that she was willing to pay their salary ongoing. Was incredible. So she was kind of like their support mechanism, I would say.
That's really an amazing story. And like you, I enjoy listening to podcasts and audiobooks.
Yeah, she's.
I find that's a good way. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm an audio person,
Yeah.
not a reader.
That's definitely the way to do it. For some, but not for all. Okay, and that's great, Belinda. So we're on to the final piece, which, if you just introduce yourself again, and then give us a 2-minute top tip of your favorite leadership tip.
Okay. What am I saying, Belinda?
Okay. Introduce yourself. There we go.
Okay. Hi, my name is Belinda Agnew. I am the founder of Foccus Group, which is a digital recruitment agency. Love all things tech startup world. I am on the podcast with Jonathan Bowman-Perks. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Don't worry, that's okay. Let's keep going.
Jonathan Bowman-Perks, welcome to the Inspiring Leadership series.
Thank you. And what is the tip that you would give for a really good leadership tip for people?
As a leader or as an employee?
As a leader, a good tip for other fellow leaders that you found really works well.
This is actually quite random, but what I'm about to say, because I was going to say something different. Allow your employees to build a personal brand.
That's good. Yeah.
Because personal brand is more powerful than actually leaving behind an experience with your company. So I think allow your employee to stand alone as their own brand is the future of work, in my opinion.
That's a brilliant tip. Belinda, thank you very much for being on the Inspiring Leadership series. We've had a lot of fun. It's a light-hearted, easy chat, and I've really enjoyed having you here. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Bye for now.